A very good evening to all of you on behalf of Appit family. And we are back again to meet another wonderful character, to learn about the motivation, to learn about the purpose, and to learn about the wonderful human being in him. So we do have Mr. Rajitha Kariyawasan. A warm welcome to you on behalf of Appit family. And then, of course, our students and our counterparts from the Staffordshire University. While all of you are just joining us today, I would like to get some inspirational input from our chairman, Mr. Bandula Egodage. So, Mr. Egodage, over to you, sir.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So, very warm welcome to our CEO's Forum, Rajitha. I don't know, I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are, chairman.
Yeah, okay. So, in fact, these days, the country is totally focusing on exports. So, this gentleman is doing a wonderful job in line with the country's vision. So, everywhere he's talking about export. Now, this gentleman is in the forefront and delivering huge, humongous results for the country's benefit. So, our objective today, in spite of all his busy schedule, he is willingly supporting our entire student population and also our staff and all the many people who are listening to this today's conversation. So thank you very much, Rajit, in spite of your busy schedule, joining us and accepting our invitation. Again, as you all know, that Appit is known as for the quality education. We have so many the objectives. Today's objective is basically we are giving the direct interaction with the CEOs of Sri Lanka. So you will be one of the most inspiring the CEO set of Sri Lanka. So I'm sure you can give your first-hand information to our students to get their knowledge improvement or their knowledge enhanced. So this is the whole objective. And Appit basically believing building leaders within, apart from our education excellence. So this is the golden opportunity for everyone. So once again, without wasting much time of yours and everyone's, so I think I would like to hand over to Rajit for a very, very inspirational and more insightful discussion. Thank you, Rajit, once again. Over to you through Rohanta. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you very much. And let me introduce an eminent, outstanding personality, and like what Chairman was saying, I think he's one of the most respected business personalities, corporate personalities in Sri Lanka. It's actually my honor to introduce Rajitha Kariyawasan. He's a member of the Haycarb Group Management Committee on the main board of Haycarb PLC, which is one of the top companies in Sri Lanka. Currently serves as the Managing Director of Haycarb PLC, which is on the purification product sector and eco-solution sector of Haycarb PLC, and is also the Deputy Chairman of DIP Products PLC. Rajitha also serves as a member of the board of the Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology, or call it SLINTech, representing Haycarb. Before joining Haycarb, he held positions as Director General Manager of Ansel Lanka Limited and Chairman of the Manufacturing Association of Export Processing Zone in Biagama. He holds a BSc in Engineering, Electronics and Telecommunications from the premier university in Sri Lanka, the University of Moratuwa, and is also the Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, FCMA, in UK. In addition, he's a Six Sigma Continuous Improvement Black Belt, certified by the Motorola University, Malaysia. Rajitha, it's actually an honor to hear you. I know that you're giving fantastic leadership, not only just to the Haycarb Group, but also to Sri Lanka as a whole, with some exceptional best practices, which I think, it's actually lovely to hear you. Over to you, Rajitha.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Kaushali and Bandula and Rohanta, for your gracious words. You don't need any introduction in Sri Lanka. So I'm very happy to be at Appit, and I believe most of the audience today is postgraduate professionals and students who are doing MBAs and so on. So it's my pleasure to share my thoughts and experience in a very short presentation and a Q&A to such an academic and a professional audience. So I have given the liberty to select the topic. So I thought, since I'm most of my career currently at Haley's as well as previously at Ansel has been primarily managing and leading export organizations, I thought it was time to select a topic of addressing export growth and how we need to realign, especially looking at the COVID-19 situation and its impact, and what we call now as a new normal. So I will share the slides. It's a brief set of slides, but I will dwell a bit more onto each of the key topics and also elaborate more with Rohanta's questions. So the basically what I plan to cover is what has been the kind of post-pandemic COVID-19 export performance from a Sri Lankan point of view. What was the pre and the post situation as far as 2020 is concerned. Overall export impact from the pandemic, and in terms of 2020 and the 2021, and we move forward, what would be the kind of expected outcomes. Then key impacts that again from the COVID-19, how it has impacted the industry at large and the society at large. Then strategies and action plans, more or less with some practical examples of how we managed to kind of overcome so far some of the most, what I call the most challenging period I have faced in my career, and probably within our lifespan as well. Then looking ahead, briefly, what we should look for in terms of basically facing this situation. I like to present this to everyone. I think Elon Musk is one of the most innovative and most, what I would say, life-changing CEOs of this century. And the way he has built his business and how he has changed the world to be very short is quite amazing. So what I want to emphasize to everybody is that we all are ordinary people. We all have similar characteristics, similar needs, similar aspirations. But it all depends on how we choose to be extraordinary, to make that the difference and make the extent of the impact that we can do to ourselves, our families, and our society and world at large. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the export performance. Sri Lanka, 2019, the total exports, when I say it is the merchandise, I mean, when I say exports, it's the goods and the services here, stood at US $16.4 billion. And the forecast, I mean, the December is the full calendar year of 2020 is over, but the official figures of EDB is yet to come. And so the November, they made a forecast for the full year for exports, merchandise and services at about $13.4 billion. So they're expecting about 18% drop. So what we have to realize here is we are supposed to be a rapidly export growth-driven economy. So it's having an 18 to 20% drop on year, where we should have, I think, on the high two digits, at least 15% of export growth, basically to kickstart our economy, basically to have a GDP growth about 6%, you need to have fairly high rate of export growth. So by looking at a scenario like that, we are looking at something like 20 to 30% expected drop in the exports, which is quite significant. Now, I would like to compare how the Helios has done, basically, so comparison Sri Lanka versus us. So 2019 and 2020, the key export sectors, apart from these three, there are a couple of other sectors that I'm not managing, but this remains the largest export sectors of Helios. Haycarb, which is in the activated carbon, made out of coconut shell, where we have about 16% of the global share. The products, which is the gloves that Helios subsidiary manufactures, which has about 5% of the global market share of the segments that we are in. And Eco Solutions, that is primarily the fiber and fiber-related products that we are in. Again, we are a major player, but depending on the very diversity of the market, it's very difficult to predict the share that we have. So we had something like 29 billion rupees top line out of Sri Lanka. These are more than 95% of these are exports. So I would like, for simplicity, I'll take that as a very close figure for exports in 2019. But in 2020, December, when we closed our accounts, the estimated, actual estimated unaudited figures stood at about 32 billion. So we had, if you look at from a Haycarb's point of view and also Dip Products point of view, we had a significant growth in our exports despite the pandemic, and overall despite the pandemic also. Even if you adjust for the currency, I looked at the US dollar values, it was a growth despite the supply problems that we had, particularly in March, April, and May. We have to look at that because that was an impossible period for Sri Lanka, where even our shipments during those periods were about 30 to 40%. And in fact, April month, it was almost half of our normal exports. So despite that heavy dip in the complete lockdown of the country, we managed to recover and basically have a growth in the pandemic hit year. So that gives a kind of sheds a light, saying that there are certain possibilities if we adopt correct strategies and correct approaches to this kind of pandemic-driven situation. Still, there is hope and there is room to grow. Overall, Helios that has a lot of Sri Lankan businesses, local businesses, including agriculture, plantations, a lot of consumer applications. Still, we have kind of done very well. We have managed to come to 210 billion turnover. That is again estimated figure compared to 219 billion last year. There has been a lot of impacts on the local market. So that is why we are seeing some level of a dip in the overall. That is mainly to do with the locally consumed businesses. The key impacts. So you saw how the Sri Lanka overall, as well as a conglomerate largely on exports, how the figures looks like, because figures at the end of the day are very stubborn. Facts are stubborn. So we would like to kind of show that to you before speaking on the other aspects. So on the key impacts, if you look at for exports, particularly demand side and the supply side, if you look at the demand side, again, let's look at Sri Lanka. This is the merchandise, that is mainly the products, excluding tourism and so on. If you look at the Sri Lankan situation, this is the 11 months published figures by the EDB up to November 2020. You could see the overall country situation, how the drop has taken place. Mainly you can see the apparel segment has had a major hit, about 22% decline, which is the largest hit for the merchandise exports. Then tea having about 10% drop, then followed by rubber having about another 10%. And interestingly, coconut segment, I mean, this is where Haycarb is in. One of the primary exports out of Sri Lanka is coconut activated carbon. It has had a growth of about 7%. But you see like some disproportionate reductions in exports have taken place across various different segments or other sectors of exports. So I'm not very academic to know what the real reasons of this disproportionate. So what you need to realize here is that there is overall 18% merchandise drop, and this vis-a-vis growth that has been planned. So you have to compare with that. It is not only the 16% negative, probably about 10% growth that is planned. So overall impact could be something like 25, 30% in overall the impact on the merchandise exports. So just to show how that has affected the cross section of our export performance. Then I would dwell more on to the supply side dynamics subsequently. What are the key things that has affected, and what are the key things we have done to kind of overcome? Then the main impact of the hit of the COVID-19 has been the lockdowns and the travel restrictions. So the lockdowns to mainly on a local context, that is in Sri Lanka context, how it has virtually brought the civic life and the businesses to a standstill in a particular period, particularly in March, April. And subsequent to that, the government adopted a different strategy in terms of lockdowns. They allowed the businesses and certain levels of civic life to go on and adjusting to a kind of a new normal situation without disrupting the economy drastically. But March, April was a complete disaster as far as the businesses and the civic life was concerned. And I believe that was needed in Sri Lanka at that period, because that was a very prudent move that was made. As we were very new to this situation, our hospital capacities were very limited, and we need to have the learning curve of basically managing the COVID-19, both health-wise as well as from a social point of view. Then the travel restrictions in terms of, if you look at, I mean, I've been a person who have been traveling a lot overseas. So since last year, January, I have not traveled outside the country. And likewise, everybody who is doing business. So it's a virtual standstill on travel in terms of overseas travel is concerned, and even local travel has been a lot of restrictions from district to district. So this has been a major impact that we have to address in terms of managing exports. The port shipping and air cargo challenges, as you could imagine, the amount of problems, and still it is going fairly in a bad way as to the full impact of the ports in terms of slowness, in terms of equipment availability, in terms of people. All ports around the world remains congested and below capacity. Sri Lanka has hit badly as well. Shipping, again, huge problem. Some are pandemic driven, some are as a result of the pandemic, certain actions that shipping lines have taken, whether it's justifiable or not, taking the space out. So it's a major problem on international business and particularly on export and import businesses. Similarly on air cargo, same challenges, higher costs, but air cargo has got a lot of opportunities because of this pandemic, but it is on a very high cost base. Then on work practices, in terms of how we approach our work has been totally changed. The levels of absenteeism have been very, very high in the industry. And so we had to manage through those difficulties and key impacts. And inter-district travel, there's still a lot of restrictions, and people do not want to cross boundaries, even coming for, especially there's a problem on the manual labor at the moment, especially people come from outstations. People don't want to come because it's very difficult for them to go back because of the quarantine issues and so on. Personal life impacts, so you and I, all of us have gone through physical and mental impacts of this pandemic. So overcoming them have been different for each one of us, but we have gone through this major crisis. Then manager impact, needing leadership challenges. To overcome all that, how would kind of management need to adjust ourselves into this kind of a situation is also very, very critical. So we cannot adopt the same strategies, same tactics, same methods that we used to earlier. So I'd like to dwell some in my latter part of the presentation. When you look at the demand side strategies and the action plans, so it is very, very important to realize the impacts the COVID-19 has brought about on the demand side, and also in managing export-driven industry, we had to identify what have been the pain points of the customers. Now, the main problems for customers have been, or rather something that we had to understand as the exporter, was how our customers' business is getting affected. So without knowing how his problem, I mean, we are having a problem in Sri Lanka's end, our customer in the US or in the European region or in China is facing the similar problem in a different way. So we need to have that transparency, and also if you don't have the transparency, you have to make a lot of efforts to understand the situation of the customers. So whenever we approached our customers, before doing so, we made a lot of effort to understand what are the problems those customers are going through. Because it's very important, because everybody is in a crisis. And therefore, when you approach your customers for your continuation of your products, maybe you need to revise your pricing because the costs have gone up. Maybe you need to get his support to get certain additional inventories in and so on. So you needed to have that same wavelength understanding. So understanding the customer's pain points have been very, very critical. How he was affected by the COVID, whether his employees were affected, whether his family was affected, how his business was doing, whether he's having too high inventory, too low inventory, whether he has cash problems, whether he has the supply and demand side, his own problems. So all these need to be understood. So this is where we gave a lot of training to our marketing and sales people. And I myself got involved in most of these things to understand our key customers' problems clearly, so that when we converse with them, we spoke to them and we prepare action plans accordingly, basically to help somewhat the customer's pain points. For an example, there were a lot of US customers or European customers who wanted us to keep additional inventory because the shipping routes were congested and because his ports were congested. His labor force is not coming to work. So that was one strategy that we adopted. We carried extra finished goods inventory in different parts of our supply chain, either in Sri Lanka, in our overseas subsidiaries, or in terms of hired warehouses. So that was one of the key facilitations we did for our customers. And learn and understanding the new trends. That is, in terms of the pandemic, how different areas of the businesses got affected as far as our products, markets, and entire marketing aspect is concerned. There were countries or regions that are less affected, that are more affected. Product lines that were fast moving or slow moving. So that understanding of the products, markets, and also the marketing aspect was crucial to be successful. Then to diversify demand risk, mainly in terms of customers, markets, and products. Now, if you look at, say, Haycarb's product portfolio, although we call it activated carbon, we make a significant number of grades servicing a lot of applications. Some go to here, as I mentioned, the air purification, some go to water purification, some go to energy storage systems, that is the high-end carbons, some go to gold extraction, food and beverage, and specialty like cigarettes and so on. So during the pandemic, what we saw was when the currencies fell, became volatile, one of the safe haven was, I mean, it has been always gold. So the gold industry did extremely well during the pandemic. Even you could see, like in the Sri Lankan jewelers, this sovereign hit record high. The gold hit record high levels. As a result, gold industry, the mining industry was thriving during the pandemic. So when we noticed this, we could shift a lot of our products to this application, give more concentration on our mining marketing. And so there was a lot of re-emphasis done on to reprioritize our attention to our applications. Similarly, there was the water side. People were very, very concerned about their health. So although a pandemic was primarily air-driven or contract-driven, people were very careful on what they drink, how clean their water was. So this was seen through the demand dynamics. So we concentrate more and build more capacity in the water purification tower. So these are some of the changes we understood and acted on behalf and invested capital to expand our capacities. Then to diversify our demand risk, as I mentioned, and then spend more time and increase resources on the markets, on the customer intelligence, and particularly different methods of internet-based solutions, because going for trade shows, going for personal marketing was totally prohibited. So we rearranged our priorities and we adopted different methodologies. How can you be more internet-based? How can you be more online, more video conferencing, more contact with the customer? So it is very much a very active email platforms, online-driven frequent video conferencing, and replacing that with trade shows or the customer visits. So that change has to be done. And a lot of customers prefer this approach as well, because no one wanted anybody to visit, even at the early start of the pandemic. And in the latter part, it was totally prohibitive. So this adjustment was very, very welcome. Then embracing the technology in terms of, especially on terms of communication and the strength of the social media and the communication tools we specifically use, the platforms like LinkedIn, platforms like Twitter, and even to go into the kind of Facebook, and particularly use web-based, how your website and website-driven inquiries are going to be so crucial. So that level of detailed investments on developing your web, developing your online platforms, developing a social media marketing campaigns was very, very important. And organizing culture and the systems change. So it was very, very important that you quickly adopt work from home and very flexible work arrangements. And as I mentioned, dealing with your customers, how do you interface those changes? And then in terms of factories, how do you devise your shift patterns, alternative to 3 shifts versus we went for 12 shift compulsory overtime, to minimize the number of people that are there in the factory at a particular point in time. So there were a lot of realignment, readjustment, and refacilitation that needed to very fast to respond to the pandemic. Then on the supply side, some of the important areas was to diversify the production bases. So in fact, it was very difficult for corporates who have not diversified their production bases to do that at the time of pandemic. So what I want to mention here is a lot of successes of companies during the pandemic was due to the preparation they have had, or rather the build they have done previously, thinking about this level of contingencies. The companies who have planned for such contingencies, risk management, risk mitigation, I think survived much better and went through this pandemic much better than the others. So our export bases had fairly diversified manufacturing base. For example, if you take Haycarb, only 50% of our manufacturing was in Sri Lanka. The balance 50% was overseas. So we had about 25% in Indonesia, another 25% in Thailand. So this really helped during the pandemic, because we have been operating our plants at about 85% capacity. When the entire lockdown came in Sri Lanka in the March-April period, that was not the same for Indonesia and Thailand. So we could readjust our capacity planning, the production planning accordingly, and make sure that the disruptions we made to the customer and the market was at a minimum. It was affected to a large extent, but we could minimize it to as much as we can because of this diversification. And similarly, when Indonesia got the height of the COVID wave, when they had to reduce the capacity to about 60 to 70%, Thailand and Sri Lanka could take the the balance. So it played very well, I believe, what we have done as a strategy over the years to diversify our manufacturing base. And the lead times, adjustment of the lead times. I think the early communication with the customers and all stakeholders of the business of the impact of the pandemic was very crucial. So I know a lot of companies preferred to not inform customers of the adverse impact. So they went very late when it was really hit. They went and informed the customers that product is not available, even some of our competitors. But what we adopted was very early warning systems, giving upfront information about the possibility of delays, the possibility, the need to carry extra inventory at every point of the supply chain, and also requesting customers to carry more inventory in their premises. So that early warning systems really help. So bad news given as fast as possible time was better news than not giving any news to customers. So therefore, that was one of the things I really learned. Providing this bad news on time and adjusting everybody to that bad news was crucial for anybody's success. The raw material inventories we had to increase because shipping time was very unrealistic. So starting with chemicals to raw material like charcoal, the products, the latex inventories, all we'll have to kind of make very quick decisions to increase working capital and in some cases double our inventory hold to adjust for contingencies and disruptions. Then most important on the supply side was the COVID management. How do you incorporate the hygiene practices? So this was, in fact, this was one of the key differentiating factors for reputed exporters and reputed manufacturers, how quickly and how well you could adjust your factory situations, your supply side to COVID-19 compliant manufacturing systems of hygiene, which was very, very crucial. The investment on COVID prevention, in order to have that hygiene, we had to invest a lot on the COVID prevention in terms of PPE, in terms of providing health like vitamin, halos to the people. So the things that we did, I mean, some of the photographic expressions are there, how we basically had the hygiene practices inside companies, how we went very fast and basically build separations in our factories so that the social distancing can be, there's no point telling people to have 1 meter or 2 meter. You have to compulsate everybody, you keep that distance. So our canteens, our workplaces, every point we had to make pandemic friendly or hygiene enough for the minimum spread of the disease. Then the government came up with the COVID PCR testing. So the export sector was asked a 2% PCR test per day. That is, you test at least 1/3 of your workforce fully in a single month. So we went, I mean, a lot of companies was reluctant to do this to find COVID cases. But what a lot of companies found later was, without doing proper testing and hygiene, they created COVID clusters inside. So at the time they detected it has spread so much in their workplaces, they had to shut down. So the very early warning, early recommendation by the government, a very prudent move to do the PCRs in a particular way, and doing that really helped us. And whenever we identified this contact base and isolation and doing full testing of the area, that corrective actions really helped us to basically keep manufacturing alive. So there were a lot of things that we did in terms of systems, in terms of education, and in terms of people's health. COVID situation, I believe, tested the employee-friendly nature of the employer. So the companies who really went on and invested in the people in terms of their health. Now, for example, we started as a first instance to build the immune system of our people. We provided on the company account to every employee the vitamin C and the vitamin D as two essential vitamins prescribed by the health authorities on a daily basis. And executives, we gave 1 month package, and then every month we repeat to give them the tablets. And we still continue, and we have approved this for the full of this financial year also to basically give free of charge that we build the immunity, which is critically required to COVID management. And then we didn't stop there. we went to the Ayurvedic treatment. What was introduced as this Hello soup, especially the kanji or the kanda, you call it. And we are still giving in our factories every day this Hello soup, at least 1 cup for every employee per day. So I don't know the real impact of that. Scientifically, we have not proven it, but I believe those were good practices that we implemented. So some of the things we did was something like, in a nice way, we developed COVID-19, Haycarb battle against COVID. So you could see, if you scroll through this, how we basically structured this, every operation of the company from start to the finish, how we run a hygiene system in the company. I just, because interest of time, I'm just scrolling through this. We basically introduced practices everywhere across the company and had very frequent audits of basically to check, to find these are PCR tests that we have been doing, including our factory managers. So we did this in every factory of ours so that we could have the safest possible work environment. Then the COVID management, safety management system. Now, Haycarb was one of the first companies here to get the COVID certification. We obtained this about a month ago. That is the SLSI. We instilled in our basically safety and quality management system is a COVID ISO certification that we obtained. And this can be obtained by any company who wishes to do that. Then working from home arrangements. So all our officers remain very, very flexible. Even today, only 10% of the people come physically to office who are essentially required, and rest work from home, including myself. I go to office only 2 days a week or to factories. So the flexibility and giving the necessary tools that what you learn in management, give people with smartphones, the laptops, the dongles, Wi-Fi's, assisting them to set up their little office space within the premises are going to be very, very important. And in return, you expect from the people that they have to be flexible. They don't have to work 8 hours fixed from 8 to 5, but they can choose their work time, but they must be online every day. That is, unless they are on leave, they has to be flexible enough to be contactable on basically decent work hours 7 days a week. So that is the reciprocation that we ask from the management team. Then looking ahead, I would like to highlight a few things. COVID-19, primarily, if you, I'm sorry, okay, I finished the supply side. Okay, looking ahead. Now, a lot of people thought it will be over by 2021, but we are realizing that it will not be. I mean, this year, we are not going to get rid of COVID. Even the vaccinations have come in, but you'll find a lot of challenges, and it's a horrendous task to get the vaccination rolled out. And the efficacy of that is also in question. So we expect, I mean, our planning, we are expecting at least till end of 2022, COVID-19 will be there. So next 2 years. So let's plan accordingly. So let's get the business adjusted for the worst outcome and really get used to this new normal. The new normal, a new way of life. So now entire management team is adjusted to that. Our factories are adjusted to that. Shift arrangements are adjusted to that. People are incentivized and people pay schemes. All that is adjusted to that. So we are anticipating that it will be 2 years, but if it overcomes before 2 years, or most welcome. Then build on a sustainable business practices to withstand the shocks of COVID-19. So as I mentioned, diversification in terms of having the employee flexibility, in terms of building the immunity, in terms of customer side, in terms of how you invest on your money, in terms of the areas of your products portfolio, in terms of the technology platforms you want to have on communication, all that, have this as a sustainable business model, and which can be beneficial to all your stakeholders to arrest the current situation. Invest in technology, both on demand side and the supply side. Look at all new opportunities. Now, for example, in the area of gloves, we have gone through a rapid investment program. Now, every factory in Sri Lanka, we are expanding our capacity in terms of the products. In Sri Lanka, for Haycarb, for all related, especially for gold carbon, especially for water carbons, special areas of interest due to COVID, we are investing heavily and we have expanded the capacity. So you have to really look at the COVID-19 situation, what is driving your demand, what is your competitive advantage here, and adjust your investment portfolio according to that, and go into the technology trends according to that. Then invest on people. This is very, very important. This is the time that where you have to invest on the health of the people. So that is why the health and the hygiene of the workforce is not felt like this ever before. So therefore, if your workforce is health protected, if the immune system is very good, then you are going to have a safe business. So you want to keep on investing, educate them, give them the vitamins. This cost is nothing compared to a closure of your business, and it's being people friendly, and give them the necessary advice on physical health. They need to exercise. Talk to them about their mental health, the problem that they could have in the family, how to resolve them. So counseling, all those avenues need to be looked at. And one of the things we have realized during the COVID-19 period is empowerment is going to be crucial, because now, for example, when we run our overseas factories, earlier when we have larger problems in terms of either the people or in terms of our partners, in terms of the supply chain, senior management could visit and top management could resolve some of the problems. But now, imagine a situation where you are running your overseas facilities, where even in an emergency, you can't visit. So you have to make sure that the people on the ground are fully empowered. So we had, again, I designed previously a lot of Sri Lankan expatriate community working in our factories. So we empowered our plant managers, the factory heads, with a lot of authority. So they have the total financial freedom. They have the checks and balances, but they have the financial freedom. They have been given all necessary authorization limits, enhanced authorization limit, enhanced authorization boundaries, so that they can make the decisions then and there. When to start plants, when to stop plants, how the shift arrangement should work, how they should react if there's a COVID patient is involved, whether they close or not, all has to be done on the ground. So the empowerment and then getting the accountability towards that empowerment is going to be very crucial. And you have to be very, very flexible. You need to understand the other end of the problem. We had a situation where our Indonesian factory manager and his son, a young son, and also the wife, all three of them got COVID-19 in Indonesia. Our plant manager got it first, and then from him, the family got affected. So I was amazed by the resilience and the leadership that he could provide, and the team got together to come out of that kind of a situation. Because in a normal situation, we would consider that to be impossible. But without any external help, only through remote assistance in a remote country, with a factory manager and family getting COVID, they overcame the situation and they managed to run the operations at full capacity as well. So it was very amazing to see the resilience of the people in times of adversity, when the proper guidance, the accountability and the empowerment was given. Then, when you look ahead, the specialized in terms of social media, in terms of platforms, in terms of communication, you need to shift your gears. You need to invest a lot on the social media in your business, in your online digital platforms. If you look at the personally, I mean, I would like to advocate this to all professionals, that the power of your social media. Now, I'm very, very active in LinkedIn. Right? I've built over the years a very, very powerful profile with a very good connection base. And it is an investment. I mean, it's like, now, for example, when Donald Trump's Twitter account was suspended, some people were trying to evaluate the value of that Twitter account, because the entire propaganda machinery of Donald Trump was based on Twitter. Right? So these social platforms are so critical. Once you build a powerful platform, the value of that platform to you and the business is going to be tremendous. And it would reflect the brand value of the person and brand value of your company to a certain extent of the powerfulness of these the social media platforms and your profiles. So I would encourage LinkedIn as a very relevant platform for professionals, and I'm going to Twitter. Now I'm experimenting on Twitter because I want to build a good platform. So I put a lot of posts in Twitter and try to build my network. So you could see what this is not kind of, I just want to share. So this is the highest hit I got on one of the LinkedIn platforms. I got about 12,000 views. So most of the, on average, I get about 2,000 views, and some I extend up to about 10,000, lower end, something like 1,000. So this is kind of a very much a digital audience that you have to propagate your company messages, the philosophy of management, and your personal capability and the capacity, which I believe is very important to build your brand image. Build a digital communication technology, as I mentioned. I don't want to dwell too much on that, and also to affect it. Now, for example, we did an audit yesterday. We connected US, we connected China and Sri Lanka. The supply partner is in China, the parent company is in the US, and supply base via Haycarb in Sri Lanka. So we concluded very successfully a physical audit yesterday, complete on a digital platform. So this gives me tremendous satisfaction how we have overcome it. Earlier, we would have spent about 5 business days to complete it, but here with proper preparation and sharing of documents and updates, within 3 hours, we completed the audit. It saves money, time for us, saves a lot of money, time for our customers. And at the end, you achieve a very near normal outcome of a good audit. So these situations have given us a lot of opportunity to basically think out of the box and new ways. And you need to, looking ahead, renew touch and understanding with your key stakeholders. So very important, customers and employees. Two of the most important stakeholders for me for these last 2 years have been in the pandemic, your customer and the employee. Then the second level comes the suppliers, government, and your community. Looking ahead, build different and sustainable business model, emphasizing on value, invest on technology, people and supply chain in a different way. Identify where you need, reprioritize your investment, reprioritize your technology, and see what skills are required on people in terms of social media, in terms of marketing people, in terms of manufacturing people, what need to be. There's a lot of aspects of, say, listening skills required in this pandemic. There's a lot of empathy that is required in the pandemic. So you need to train your management and basically tell them how to face their teams, how to emphasize things differently, their teams, because everybody is under stress. Everybody has their own set of problems. So you need to understand, have empathy towards that to get best work out of them during these trouble periods. Lessons to learn, right? Some of the things that I have personally learned is that be friendly with the planet. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about it, but when you go to the normalcy, how many will remember this and how many will forget this? But personally, it given us a chance to look at inwardly and see, be friendly with the planet, and consume less, be responsible, leave this planet for the next generation. Instill saving habit. You saw across the board, socially, any country and every country that people have not saved. I mean, within 1 month or 2 months, people couldn't finance their rent. They could not pay their credit card because they did not have savings at all. So this pandemic proved the old habit of the Sri Lankan society that saving is so vital. So this traditional saving methodology, even Buddhism preaches about it, that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, consumption, investment, and the saving. So it is very, very important. And as young management who are going, and the mature professionals, it's very important to instill this saving habit. And also change your investment portfolio. I mean, for example, today on a fixed deposit, you're getting only 5-6%. So how do you divert? Today, stock market is a thriving industry, right? Can you divert some of your funds to stock market and earn better return? So these are things that we need to remember personally. Unlearn outdated management is very, very important, and then relearn and acquire new skills. There are so many new skills that I acquired, especially on the social media and on the platforms during this pandemic. Be healthy, eat well, sleep well, be active physically, and very importantly, mental health. You have to take care of it. either through meditation or good pastimes, hobbies, get involved in certain other things. Within the framework, within the boundary, within the lockdown framework you have, invest your time on something that make you contented, happy. Try to be happy and contented. Life is short and pandemic may take 3 to 5 years out of it. So be prepared for it. So I end with, again, quote from Mr. Elon Musk: when something is important enough, you do it, even if the odds are not in your favor. So again, during the pandemic, the odds are not in your favor, but it is important enough, whether it's business, your personal life. I think if you have the correct will and the correct approach, it's doable. Nothing is impossible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajitha. It was a fantastic view of theory and practice, beautifully conceptualized. I mean, there are a lot of people in Sri Lanka who are very good practitioners, but they don't have the ability of conceptualizing. And I suppose that what takes to be on the board of Haley's, and I'm actually, it was amazing thought leadership presentation, and thank you sincerely, Rajitha. I'll take a few questions. The first one, Rajitha, what is being asked is, what are the key qualities and skills that a typical exporter must have to win in today's environment?
Yeah, I think thank you very much for your comments, Anta. I mean, it's a pleasure to share all this in a very limited time. So I think some of the things, I think whether it's exporter or an entrepreneur, I think the resilience is a key thing, right? Meaning that how do you face a situation of adversity, right? When you fall, how do you get up, right? So that is in the face of a major challenge or failure, what is the resilience you have? So this is where I think naturally Sri Lanka has an edge, because we have gone through so many difficulties, so many obstacles. I mean, we followed, I mean, I was born in 1968, and we went through 33 decades of horrific war. And I could remember how we used to manage at that time Ansel, when the bombs were exploding and the foreigners intact, customers intact. So in terms of adversity, how we overcome, and the confidence and the experience behind you to basically face such, the experience on those challenges, I think is crucial for an exporter or any business person to primarily be successful. And then I think what is very important in simple terms is the other one, as you also mentioned some time back, is the genuineness. Because in simple terms, if you want to be successful in front of your team and the management as a leader at whatever level, at a country level or a business level or a family level, you have to be genuine in your intentions. In other words, like walk the talk, right? So I believe the COVID-19 is a good period, a good challenge where you could see whether what businesses said to the people or the society was practiced, right? For example, I'm not being very critical of companies, but what I'm saying is, look at how companies reacted when the COVID-19 hit. Some of the companies, first thing they did was they cut the pay of the people, right? They first talk about the restructuring and they kind of take the people. I mean, you are talking about your most valuable asset, as you say, right? You preach and say this most valuable asset. So in a times of adversity, if you don't have your most valuable asset on your side, how do you run your business? So first thing if you think is to cut the pay of your employee and basically either to restructure your company. I know that these things have to be done if the business cannot survive. But I don't believe that most companies in Sri Lanka face this situation when the COVID was hit in the first month or the second month. A lot of companies made profits prior years and they had their reserves. So at least I believe it would have been a very good strategy for everybody to say, this is a difficult time. Let's tighten our belts, but we will keep your employment and we will pay, right? But after 6 months we are going to review, right? I mean, this is something we elaborated at Haley's, and we decided not to cut pay of the people. And that really reciprocated on the other way around, because people saw what is happening all around and people build a lot of confidence on the company. And that kind of a faith when you get out of the employees, I think the success story of ours here is what I call the unsung heroes of this era, is how people really went out to the ground and basically stood at us. Now, for example, when the COVID was hit, no one knew what COVID-19 is, right? It was like in Sri Lanka, it was a stigma. People were scared to go out of the homes. So you imagine a factory manager going to the front line with, say, 500 workers who could be infected and taking the challenge to run these operations. We know most of the people came to work despite their spouses telling not to go, right? So it took time to build that confidence. Okay, you can manage this with the COVID. But initially, it was so challenging because I was scared. My family was scared of me going. So everybody was. So I think that is, you have to walk your talk, because what you say that you will do, you have to do in a crisis. I mean, these are two things I would say: you resilience and be genuine, right? And you can have the strategy, vision, all that. Right? All those are required. But if you don't have the genuineness and if you don't have the resilience and the confidence, the rest will fail.
Rajitha, how important or how beneficial was the COVID control certification that SLSI issued? I saw you had put it on in your presentation.
Yeah.
Is it beneficial? Is it?
I think I put it in a different way, Hunter, because what I wanted to do was to instill this as a management practice. So sometimes what happens is when you put these practices, it's like a flare at the moment, right? People are very, very upfront and very active on the first month or the two. Thereafter, you become used to COVID, right? And then it becomes your normal life. So when you put that as a management system, that's how usually in the quality system also, you're bound to do the audit, you're bound to do certain management practices. So I want to instill this as a management practice. So that is the main benefit I think you can get out of that, because it's reviewed. So it is very systematic. And then also it has advantage in terms of clientele. Overseas client will be very impressed, right? Because this is also, not many countries have this. So when you say you have a COVID-19 certification in your management system, I think it is a big plus for us at the moment.
Very strange, Rajitha, because this whole thing happened during COVID, and I was just thinking there is no point in all our experiences, no point having all the qualifications if we can't do something for the country. So on the 22nd of March, I was thinking what to do, because as you said, none of us could go on to the streets and we were just confined to a house. And then this idea came saying, let us develop this thing called Stop the Spread. And, I chatted with a few Rotarians, and we developed this thing of where you first create attitude change among all people by using National Olympic Committee athletes. And then in the school around, you explain to the shops about the new normal that is to be done with the Ministry of Health. And then we're thinking what we need to do next. And then this idea came saying, why don't we have a certification, COVID control certification? So we thought we were going to talk to Dr. Siddhika. And within 2 weeks, she developed this whole thing. And when you told me that, it was beneficial from an external and internal view, it just gives a lot of satisfaction that this product actually came from Rotary. And today, as at today, we have about 312 companies who have been certified.
Yeah,
And
that's
within
great to
the
hear. That's great to hear.
next 3 weeks, we have 29 schools that are going to be COVID certified. So that hopefully we make it safe, like you did, Rajitha, at Haley's, so that the kids can go to school. So I don't know, World Vision has also come in as a partner to cover the cost, and I think it's really fantastic. Thank you for supporting the venture. Rajitha, while things were was really good in terms of presentation, one of the biggest issues that the country has is policy inconsistency. How do you view of this issue?
Yeah. Now, of course, we have had a lot of challenges with this is a common topic that with every government that we face on the. Now, the main thing that I want to tell you is, this has affected all of us one way or the other. But what we have taken is a different approach. That is, as long as the free trade and certain basic underlining features of a free economy and an investment climate is maintained, because there are things that you would like on the policy framework nice to have, and the basic essentials you must have in order to operate a business. So as long as you have the basic things, right? We don't take anything for granted, and we don't rely on that. And then you try to build a business model and a strategy around it. Now, one thing for example, this is one reason why we decided to go to overseas manufacturing, and not to one was the raw material, obviously, but we still could import raw material and do it. But having it all in one country when you're having so many different problems of the wars and so on, insisted us to take that bold step. It's not easy to set up overseas facilities, but we are very successful over time to kind of establish and run it. And we have been very profitable in our overseas operation right through, quite successful. So I believe that as an exporter, if you especially look at it, as long as that basic free trade mechanism prevails, I think the rest of the things are like you nice to have things, and that will definitely encourage your business. But you build your business model only on those basics, not taking anything else for granted, and try to diversify as much as possible and try to be global as much as possible. So that is, I think, one of the key messages I would like to give it to the exporters. Once you establish in Sri Lanka, don't think only on Sri Lanka, right? Both supply chain and markets, of course, you have to diversify, but diversify your supply chain also, and then have multi-country operation, which is very, very critical, not only with the natural disasters, but with the policy frameworks and so on. It will give you a better playground to meet your competition. And then, for example, even if you look at
on a lighter note, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm all right. Thank you.
On a lighter note, Rajitha, what made you get into this area of business? When you left school, I know you would have done SIMA and moved forward, but is there any reason you got into this line of business? Because most of the youngsters are contemplating whether they do SIMA, they do ACCA, or whether they want to do marketing. How did you get into this area?
If you look at my first job, my first job was in investment banking. I was attached to the stock investment group of Merchant Bank. It was called Lanka Securities, still there. So I joined. My first job was as an equity analyst and stock research. Right. So I would say that was neither in finance nor in engineering or whatever. So it's kind of but it gave me a kind of, I think, very early look at of the companies, how to look at a company, and kind of one of the first companies I was asked to evaluate and publish a research report was, I can still remember, Lanka Voltiles. So I still could remember going and interviewing the CEO at that time, Mr. Prasanna De Silva, was the head of Lanka Voltiles, and apparently he was the head of Ansel when he interviewed me. So it was so coincident that I interviewed him and published a research report. And when the job that I had at Ansel was in finance. I was applying for the finance manager's post. When I went for the interview, it was Prasanna who was heading the panel. Then he identified me as, you are the one guy who came and interviewed me. So I think that was one reason why I got the job, right? So I mean, the life's turns and moves are so strange, and I would say your destiny and your fate, right? So it probably prompted me, and because he was also royalist, I was not royal, so I did that was a help. So he recruited me. So then I was in finance, and then I moved to management accounting, and then I headed the finance as the financial controller of Answer. And one day, it was also coincidental because everybody was talking about my engineering background. What are you doing in accounts when you have an engineering degree? So at that time, the president was reporting to an Australian boss called John Gardner, very, very reputed gentleman at Ansell. So he always used to ask me, like, do you like to come to general management or manufacturing? So then he was going to be posted outside of Sri Lanka, and then one of the most of the positions at Ansell was at that time expected, and now manufacturing director was kind of relocating, and then suddenly these guys asked, do you like to move to manufacturing? So it was totally I had to make a bold move because I was a qualified accountant and the head of the finance. And then, yes, I said yes. And so I was kind of thrown to the kind of the deep end. And they had a lot of senior managers, so I was put on top of them. But a lot of people even challenged me on the face, openly, that you're not suitable for this job because you don't have a track record in manufacturing. So I listened to the critics, but I somehow learned the job and then became the manufacturing head, and then became the head of Answers. So that is how I mainly moved to manufacturing, and then since then I've been exports and heading exports. So it was, I would say, coincidental, but at the same time, I think the one thing that I would like to tell the audience is, like, sometimes when you get a challenge, you may not know how to do it, right? But you accept it. There's a famous saying on this also: accept it and see how you can work it out. Because one thing about this multidisciplinary exposure is that, especially engineering and accountancy, that gives you a lot of avenues to move. And you being an accountant, you know how the bottom lines, the ratios, everything works. So it really helps in an organization. So this combination of multidisciplines really helped me. But at the same time, you are put on the deep end and you have to survive. So that also, you on the job, you had to kind of somewhere learn it. So that challenge you have to take. Otherwise, if you don't take that type of challenges, I don't think you can come up in the careers.
Any big mistake you made in your life?
It's a difficult question. I really didn't go through the entire thing. I think one of the, I don't know whether it's a mistake or not, but when I was in Ansell at a particular stage, when I was heading, I was asked whether I would like to move out of the country. Now, that is kind of on a regional basis, but I did not pursue that with great interest, because that was mainly, I had a bit of a lot of linkage to the Sri Lankan. So again, my daughter was very small at that time, so I was not pursuing. I did not say no, but I did not pursue it aggressively. I don't know whether it's a mistake or not. Probably it had taken me in a different path. I don't know. That's all what I have to say on that.
So, Rajitha, what is the advice you like to give young Rajitha at 20 years, what would you give?
Yeah, I think this, I mean, especially if you look at how I tend to look at how my daughter looks at things now, which is totally different, right? So, I mean, if I had to kind of come back to now at 20 years, I think the the way the people think today are so different. I mean, the millennium, I mean, that's one of the challenges that the business leaders have to understand as well. Now I think one of the mistakes that I think one of the things that I would change is, particularly on education side, I would like to get exposed into more areas. Now, for example, my daughter is very keen on literature. She writes a lot while she pursue kind of a science background. But at those times when our education system did not allow it, either it's engineering, bioscience, engineering, or arts or commerce, right? Now the people have a lot of avenues, and so it I think builds a better person overall, and you tend to appreciate things better in that sense. So I believe if that was the case, and also young people also, what I would like to tell is like, okay, you follow your passion. I mean, we really did not follow our passions, right? We were asked to, or rather directed to a particular direction, and we had to find the passion in there, right? So now I think if you have to relive that situation, I think you have more freedom and more opportunities to follow your passions, right? So that would be one thing. You may not be, maybe you may not be this successful in terms of positions and so on, but you could be happier than this, right? So that is something. Perhaps you could have enjoyed life more, lived life even with a better fulfillment if you had that kind of a atmosphere. So these opportunities they have, but the problem you see is also this situation. There are so many options, so they are undecided, right? So they try to touch one, go to the other. I mean, that is also not good. And I see also from the young executives today, they don't stay in the company, right? That's the kind of when I look at CVs, some of the people, the first 5 years, 4 or 5 companies. So that is not very good, right? Because it doesn't speak much about the stability and so on, because all you're doing is the shopping around and you don't get much good exposure also. So you have to all do this in a kind of a balanced way. But I believe that ability to kind of have these multidisciplinary exposures and especially the tech culture, social media, all that is going to be important. But I'm learning Twitter and learning how to do all that. So it doesn't matter. But I think if we had that kind of exposure and there's so many options, I think we would have followed our passions much more than what used to be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajitha Kariyawasan. I mean, it's a wonderful chatting with you, and I mean, it's so beautiful how authentic the ideas came through. It shows how much of strength you have given, and I think one point that we will never forget is how you said that a lot of people put just talk saying that people are the most important assets, but as soon as the pandemic came, they were the first people to say we are going to start restructuring and laying off people. But how you said, no, I'm going to fight for the people, I'm going to keep them. They're the people who are going to take us through. And I suppose that's a lesson for a lot of companies around the world, I suppose, as to how a company like Haley's, which is now your entity, which is $32 billion, 32 billion rupees, as to how you are giving so much of strong leadership. It's actually fantastic. Thank you very much, Rajitha, for the lovely discussion you had, and it was really an honor to host it. I like to share the thought now to Kaushali. Do you have any questions, Kaushali, from the chat group?
Yes, we do have, Doctor. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajitha. It's amazingly inspiring. And I think so many questions have come in the line in the latter part where you started speaking about your switching and the experiences of your professions. So let me sum up that in one question. As a young person, how and where did you get your grit and motivation to be who you are today?
Yeah. I think it's an evolving thing. I must be very open with you, because it has been always evolving. I mean, it has different stages of life, different circumstances, and different situations have inspired or directed me to follow this path. Now, now, for example, I think one of the first things I must mention is about my family, because my wife has been really supportive of my career. And she had illustrious career at Unilever, but when my daughter was born and after about 2-3 years, she decided to give up the job. So I think there's an enormous sacrifice she made, and to basically make my career successful, because that has helped me a lot, because having a stable home front, I don't have to worry about too many things about the nitty-gritties about your child and things that nature, gives you a lot of stability at the mind that is required to concentrate on the business. Then I think a couple of other things the motivators have been. One thing is that I always had the intention of basically proving that Sri Lanka can be correct, that Sri Lanka can be exceptional. Sri Lanka has the guts. Sri Lanka has the talent. Sri Lanka has the correct ingredients to rise in the world map. I firmly believed in this. And during my career, like every job that I have done, we have proved itself. So it's so unfortunate this country, with so much potential, with the people and with the resources, is unable to stand up, and we keep falling every time, and due to basically not because of the problems of the people, because of the problems of the leadership. So it has been always my intention wherever I worked. I think I must say up to about 30-35 years, I had my own financial intentions of doing certain things, building my life. But a lot of things changed after that, when I was kind of having a stable house, stable means of income to run my family, and a stable savings. My requirement changed to basically develop companies and show the world, or show the Sri Lanka, that we can do things. Now, for example, when I was at Ansell, I was heading, we were one of the most notorious companies to consider, because we had very bad labor problems starting from 1994, one of the worst strikes. So Ansell was considering basically taking the investments out of Sri Lanka at one point. But we made a lot of change, and we brought Ansell to a point that it was the most technologically advanced product portfolio in the entire world map. And we brought new processes, new technologies into the company, and then I was the first the head of the Ansell to have no expats within the company. So we proved globally to that Ansell International and the globally, that Sri Lanka management is so capable. We have all necessary ingredients, provided there's correct direction, correct resources are given, our people are very capable. So that brought us to in that particular product segment on surgical gloves, to the helm of the glove industry, because Ansell was at the top end. And Sri Lanka was making the most advanced surgical gloves. We made out of polyisoprene, neoprene, those are synthetic surgical gloves, and natural rubber latex. The most difficult and most premium products were made, and still it is made in Sri Lanka. A lot of people don't know about it. And one of the most sophisticated R&D facilities and capabilities are still here in Sri Lanka, including knitting technology. So for a multinational to believe that, and to bring all that and entrust with 100% local management, was so amazing. And I was surprised by the talent of the Sri Lankan people, and the correct ingredients are there, what the difference we can make. Same thing we did with Haley's Haycarb. We have brought it to one of the leaders there, and highest technology. So what I'm trying to say is that my passion was always be how to kind of make a mark in the international scene. Now, I think Rohan talks about a lot the Sri Lanka brand. Now, the Sri Lanka brand has to be supported by a lot of other sub-brands, right? So companies, the people, the institutions, the individuals who are brand in Sri Lanka. So in order to support the Sri Lanka brand, now I talked to even my people today, even COVID, when I said, I was especially emphasizing on export. That was one of the key messages I gave to the people and said, look here, guys, now we are paid, we have the full salary, we have all the benefits, right? And Sri Lankan society is suffering. And today the government don't have foreign exchange, and they are restricting imports. Export is the key. You can make this change in Sri Lanka. So people really bought into that purpose. And when they saw the numbers go up and the export contribution that they're making to this country, I think people took really pride in that. So that has always been a kind of a leading factor for me. And also now, I mean, I'm also coming to like very much level of my career and probably not many more years to go in corporate life. So what I'm trying to do is develop people and pass this message. I mean, even this type of forums help me to give my views to the people, the young generation, the professionals who are coming in, basically to go after this kind of, I mean, probably encourage them to follow that kind of a mission. Then that mission takes care of yourself, your position, your status in the career, your financial, all that is taken care of because of that company's success and success you're making. So you don't have to too much worry about how much you're getting paid, what is your increment, what is your bonus, and so on, right? So concentrate more on the others and more on the company, the brand, and broad base it to Sri Lanka, make Sri Lanka proud, right? That's the kind of message.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajitha. That's indeed inspirational. And I think for all our young graduates, and especially the ones who are in the postgraduate program, they will have this message taken today after having to listen to you and after having to listen to your story and to your inspirational thoughts. So we would really, really thank you for sharing this information with us on behalf of Apit family. And that brings us to another end of this webinar series, Meeting an Expert, Meeting a CEO, focusing on our students to learn and interact with the best people in the practice. So we will meet back again in another week's time with a new expert. Until then, good night.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rajitha. Thank you, Kaushali.
Bye. Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajitha. Bye. Thank you very much.